Let me ask you something real quick, and I want you to be honest with yourself. If someone told you right now that you could become a millionaire in less than a decade, starting from a salary so small it'd make most people laugh, would you believe them? Or would you do what most people do? Shake your head, make up an excuse about the economy, the housing market, student loans, inflation, and just keep scrolling. Because here's the thing, that's exactly what Blake Edwards almost did. He sat there in his mid-20s doing the math in his head, looking at his bank account thinking, man, it would be cool to be a millionaire by 30, but there's just no way. The math isn't there. Sound familiar? Because I hear some version of that every single week. I don't make enough. I have kids. The market's too crazy. I started too late. And look, I get it. Those feelings are real. But feelings aren't facts, and Blake's story is proof of that. This is a guy who started his career earning less than $60,000 a year in sales. Then he switched careers and became a teacher, and his salary dropped to $19,000 a year. $19,000. In the same era where the average rent in most American cities would eat that salary alive. His wife was making $10 an hour. Together, for 3 full years, they were pulling in less than $100,000 combined. They eventually had 2 kids, then a third on the way. He went back to grad school. They bought a house. They lived real life. Messy, expensive, unpredictable real life. And last month, their net worth crossed $1 million. Not through some crypto moonshot, not through inheriting family money, not through some hustle culture side grind that required working 20 hours a day, through 5 specific money habits executed consistently over 9 years. And I'm going to break all 5 of them down for you today. But more importantly, I'm going to tell you why most people know these things and still don't do them. Because that's the real problem. It's not information, it's behavior. Hello, I'm Anne. Welcome to my channel. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. Let's get into it. So first, let me give you a little context on how wild this actually is, because I think we've become numb to numbers. The median net worth for an American household in their early 30s, that's including home equity, everything, is about $96,000. That's the median. Meaning half of all American households in their early 30s have less than that. Blake and his wife hit 10 times that number while raising 2 kids, while going through a global pandemic, while going back to school, while earning less than $100,000 combined for the first 3 years of their marriage. That's not luck, that's architecture. Financial architecture. And here's the thing that really gets me. Blake himself called it compounding blessings on top of each other, or luck. He's being humble, but what he actually did was build a system that made luck possible. You can't catch a wave if you're not in the water. These 5 moves put him in the water. The wave just came later. Okay, move number 1, get a degree, but don't take out student loans to do it. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, easy for him to say, I want you to hear the full picture. Yes, Blake got a baseball scholarship. Yes, his parents helped with rent and groceries in college. He had some advantages, he'll admit that. But here's what he also said. If none of that had come through, his plan was to work to pay for tuition, or go to community college for 2 years and then transfer to a 4-year school while working part-time. In other words, he had a backup plan that didn't involve signing his financial future away. And I think that's the bigger lesson here. Not get a scholarship. Most of us aren't getting scholarships. The lesson is, be ruthlessly intentional about the cost of your education relative to its return. Do you know what the average student loan debt looks like in this country right now? In the 2023 to 2024 school year, almost 28% of undergraduates were taking out federal student loans. And the average borrower graduates with tens of thousands of dollars of debt that starts compounding interest before they've earned their first real paycheck. You're already behind before the race starts. Blake's attitude was simple. I'm personally against student loans of any kind. Now, that's not always possible for everyone. I'm not going to pretend the system is fair, but the mindset behind it, the idea that debt taken on before you even start earning is a serious handicap, that mindset is available to everyone. And when he went back to grad school in 2020 for a $12,000 program, he used an employer benefit that covered half the cost and paid the rest himself. No loans. Even then. Think about that. He used a job benefit that most people don't even bother to look into. How many of you right now have benefits at your job that you've never explored? Tuition reimbursement, health savings accounts, stock purchase plans, employee 401k matching that you're not maximizing. Free money sitting there, unclaimed because nobody reads the HR handbook. Step 1 isn't just about education. It's about being someone who actually reads the fine print and takes advantage of what's already available to them. Okay, move number 2. And this one is the one that makes everything else work. Automate investing at least 15% of your gross income, no matter what. 15% gross income, automatically. Before you see it, before you can spend it, before you can talk yourself into waiting until next month. And I want to be really clear about what no matter what means. It means when they were making under $100,000 combined. It means when Blake dropped his salary to $19,000 by switching to teaching. It means when they had babies and diapers and all the chaos that comes with growing a family. It means the percentage stayed. The median deferral rate for retirement plans in America last year was 6.8%. Not 15, not even 10. 6.8%. And honestly, that's not even saving. That's barely treading water when you account for inflation and the reality of what retirement actually costs. Blake's baseline was 15, and here's why that number matters so much. It's not about the math of 15 versus 6.8. It's about the psychology of commitment. When you automate 15% from day one, you never adjust your lifestyle to that money. It doesn't exist to you. You build your entire life around what's left. And then, and this is the part people always miss, when your income goes up, you don't inflate your lifestyle to match. The 15% gets bigger automatically because it's a percentage. Your investments grow, your paycheck grows, and your actual spending stays humble because it was always humble. That's the trap most people fall into. They get a raise. Great! Bigger apartment, nicer car, better restaurants. And 5 years later, they're making twice what they used to make, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck, and they have no idea why. Blake and his wife avoided that trap by automating discipline before the temptation arrived. And today, with their tech salaries, they're investing more than 1/3 of their income across their 401ks, 2 backdoor Roth IRAs, a health savings account, a deferred compensation plan, an employee stock purchase plan, all automated. They also invest most of their bonuses. And here's what they invest in. Index funds. Specifically, Vanguard's Total Stock Market ETF and Total World Stock ETF. Not crypto, not individual stocks, not whatever's trending on social media. I'm trying to reduce complexity as much as possible, Blake said. Let me say that again. Reduce complexity as much as possible. The smartest investors in the world aren't the ones making the most complicated moves. They're the ones with the clearest, simplest, most consistent strategy, executed year after year after year. Boring wins. Discipline wins. Automation wins. Move number 3. Pay for your cars in cash. Okay, this is the one that's going to make some of you uncomfortable, because car payments have become so normalized in this country that people don't even think of them as optional anymore. Let me give you a number. Only about 1 in 4 new vehicle buyers last month paid cash. 1 in 4, meaning 3 out of every 4 people who drove a car off a lot last month are now locked into a monthly payment with interest for a depreciating asset. A depreciating asset. That's a fancy way of saying something that is worth less money with every single day that passes. Blake's first car was a 2013 Kia Optima, given to him by his parents, and he still drives it. His wife bought a used 2016 Toyota Highlander a few years ago. No loan. She used the high trade-in value of her previous vehicle, this was right after the pandemic when used car prices were through the roof, and covered the gap with savings. They use Consumer Reports to pick reliable used vehicles. They buy quality. They own them outright. Now you might be thinking, I can't afford to buy a car in cash. And I hear you. But I want to flip that question around. Can you afford the alternative? Because the average car payment in America right now is over $700 a month. $700 a month with interest on a thing that loses value. What would happen if you took $500 of those dollars every month and put them into an index fund instead? Over 10 years, with average market returns, you'd have close to $100,000. The car payment isn't just about the car. It's about what that money could have been doing if you'd let it work for you instead of for the dealership. Move number 4. Keep your total housing costs below 25% of your take-home pay. This one is borrowed from personal finance personality Dave Ramsey, and Blake said it was one of the guardrails that shaped a lot of his decisions. Total housing costs, mortgage principal, interest, property taxes, insurance, HOA fees shouldn't exceed 25% of your take-home pay. Now let me put that in contrast with what's actually happening in America. 1/3 of all U.S. households spent more than 30% of their gross income on housing last year. Gross income. So when you factor in taxes, the percentage of their actual take-home pay going to housing is even higher. The median home price is now around $400,000, and wages have not kept pace. Blake and his wife bought a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in the Atlanta suburbs in 2020 for $250,000. Their mortgage is about $1,400 a month. They didn't buy their dream home, they bought a smart home, a home that fit inside the boundaries they'd set. And Blake said something that I think is genuinely important here. He said he's always been acutely aware that whether I live in a 5,000 square foot house or a 1,400 square foot house, I'm just living there. That's it. You're just living there. It's a place to sleep and eat and raise your family. The difference between a modest house and a dream house isn't happiness. It's the number next to the dollar sign on a monthly statement. Most people's biggest financial mistake isn't their investment strategy. It's their housing decision. They buy too much house too early and then spend the next decade trying to survive it. Blake kept housing a controlled expense. That freed up everything else. And move number 5. This one might be the most underrated. Set aside money to take advantage of opportunities you can't predict. Here's the story. Blake and his wife had been saving in a money market account. They were planning to pay off their mortgage early. Smart, disciplined, boring. And then April 2025 happened. The market took a hit in response to tariff announcements from the Trump administration. Stocks dropped, and Blake had $100,000 sitting in cash. Most people in that moment would have panicked, or just watched the news feeling helpless, or congratulated themselves on not being invested in stocks. But Blake saw something different. He saw an opportunity. He moved that $100,000 into the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF. That move has already added $40,000 to $45,000 to their net worth. Now, and Blake is very clear about this, he doesn't normally make moves like that. This isn't a story about timing the market. It's a story about being financially prepared enough that when an unexpected window opens, you can walk through it. You need to be financially prepared for opportunities that you don't even know are going to come along, he said. Think about that. How many opportunities have passed you by not because you weren't smart enough to see them, but because you didn't have the financial position to act on them? A deal on real estate, a moment to invest when markets dipped, a business opportunity that required upfront capital, a chance to leave a job you hated and start something new. Financial security isn't just about retirement. It's about freedom. It's about having options when options appear. Look, I know what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking, this guy had advantages. The scholarship, the parents who paid rent, the employer who covered grad school, the wife who was on the same page financially. And you're not wrong. He had some things working in his favor. But let me ask you this. What advantages do you have that you're not using? What employer benefits are sitting unclaimed? What's your actual savings rate right now? And when did you last automate it? How much of your take-home pay is going to housing? How many car payments are you carrying? Do you have cash set aside for opportunity, or are you always one crisis away from zero? Because here's what Blake's story is really about. It's not about being born lucky. It's about building a system and protecting it even when life gets expensive and complicated and exhausting. Even with kids. Even with a pay cut. Even through a pandemic. The median household in their early 30s in America has a net worth of $96,000. Blake's household crossed $1 million. The gap between those two numbers isn't talent. It isn't luck. It's habits. Repeated, automated, defended. The math doesn't lie. 15% invested consistently in low-cost index funds over time, with housing controlled, with cars paid for in cash, with cash reserves ready for opportunity. That math leads somewhere real. And here's the thing I want you to sit with as we close out. Blake said he saw a gap. People needing more transparency around money and wanting a real-life version of someone trying to figure things out as they went. He wasn't perfect. He made less than $20,000 a year as a teacher. He changed careers twice. He went back to school during a global pandemic. He figured it out as he went. That's permission. That's permission for you to figure it out too. You don't need to have it all figured out before you start. You need 5 habits executed consistently for a long enough time. That's it. So here's your homework. Before you close this video, before you go back to scrolling, before life gets busy again, open your retirement account. Check your contribution percentage. If it's less than 15, increase it today. Automate it. Set it and forget it. That one move alone puts you ahead of most of the country. And then come back here, because we're going to keep going. We're going to keep breaking down the real stories, the real numbers, and the real habits that actually move the needle. Because you didn't click on this video by accident. You're here because something in you knows it's possible. Trust that feeling, and then go build something with it.